And how many of you have heard about it and you've been thinking, maybe I ought to join? Good. I think you'll find if you're a mineral owner in Pennsylvania, this is where you belong. This is like the Farm Bureau for mineral owners. And it's a volunteer organization. I'm on the board of directors and currently president. There's no paid positions in Pennsylvania. It is a national organization, and our national office is in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we do have an executive director there, Jerry Simmons, and if you've been to other NARO events, a lot of times we have Jerry here. You want to mark your calendars. We're getting ready to hold our 3rd annual convention in State College at the end of March, March 28th and 9th, and the cost is extremely reasonable. It's $150 for a day and a half of sessions. And we have Terry Engelder as our first speaker of the afternoon when we start. Gene Yaw, Senator Yaw, who is now chairman of the Environmental Resource Committee, which is an extremely important committee to those of us that own minerals. He's going to be a speaker. The Marcellus Shale Coalition will participate, and they're arranging, or not, Cabot is arranging for a speaker from Deloitte Bank to talk to us about natural gas exports, and Williams will be there to talk about compressor stations. And then on the second, and that'll be followed by a networking reception, and possibly something with fractionation. We don't have those details worked out. And then the second day, we will start with, we'll have a full day of sessions. In the morning, it'll be split sessions, so you can choose what you want to go to. And then in the afternoon, full sessions. But there we'll have attorneys, accountants, mineral managers, the whole gamut of speakers talking about topics from estate planning to royalty checks, the components of natural gas, a wide variety of topics. And both of the conventions got rave reviews that we had before. Lots of networking opportunities with other people like yourselves. You know, if you own minerals, I don't know how many of you feel comfortable about going to the local diner and talking to somebody about your problems with your royalty checks or operations on your property or whatever. The Royalty Owners Organization is kind of like a safe haven. You're all in the same boat. And you go there and you can find other people that have things in common with you, people that can learn from you, and people that you can learn from. And this, you know, if you want to go on and go to like the national convention, this is across the nation. And we have a long history in Pennsylvania. It started here. It didn't start in Texas. It started at the Drake Well. We have a long history, but we don't have some of the sophistication that some parts of the country have, I think. And so we're learning that. Some of us find, as we talk to people in the western part of the state, that, well, we know that there is a lot of sophistication in how they manage their minerals, but there's not been any sharing of it like we have across the country. So, you know, that's a big part of this. One of the big benefits this year is it's only $150 for the 2 days. If you're not a member, then it's $300 because you have to pay the membership fee. But if you join tonight, it's the $150. If you decide to go to our national convention in the fall, then we're going to apply the $150 you paid for Pennsylvania towards Columbus, Ohio. That's where it is this year. We would like to see people go there. And I have an ulterior motive there. Once people come to a convention, how many of you have been to a convention of, okay, how many of you have been to national? Would you miss one if you could help it? As a mineral owner, it's extremely important. And so I like to get people to a meeting. Get people, you know, you can just join and get the newsletters and read what's going on and just be a quiet lurker, and that's fine. Gives us numbers. But when you get involved in the conventions, you really find the value of your membership. And those people, there's no question that they're going to continue to be a member and renew. So I have an ulterior motive. We've made significant amount of money on the conventions with sponsorships, so this year we decided, even if everybody that came decided to go to national and we had to pay out every fee back, that's okay, because we think that we'll have a stronger organization. So look for that, Convention State College. It's at the Ramada. The room rates are $70 a night. You can't beat it. And for the $150, it includes all your meals and networking, reception, and the works. So somebody said, you know, it's almost like they're paying you to go. How could you not? And encourage your neighbors. We're really finding, you know, we can do ads about NARO, why you need to join NARO, but the best way to find members is to get current members to reach out to people they know. That's the best way. I think there's more of a comfort level. We had a meeting like this at the Montrose Legion a while ago, and we had 5 couples that weren't members, and before the evening was over, all 5 couples had joined. And then we'll have other meetings where, you know, we invite the general public and hundreds show up. We don't get nearly as many members from that, but when somebody brings their neighbor along and shares it, then we get more members. Some of the things that we're doing at the local level in Pennsylvania, you know, our oil and gas law, I would say, is not very mature in Pennsylvania. You know, we've had fairly good regulation over the years, which has had to evolve and change with the new technology, with the horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing. But there hasn't been development of a lot of new law or more sophisticated law. So one of the things that's a goal for us this year is to have introduced check stub legislation. We're calling it royalty standards, and it will involve division orders, royalty checks, and getting some standardization there. You're getting checks from 5 companies, and the checks are all different, and you find that your production numbers are all different. There's a lot of things to match up there, and then you're dealing with a different format in every royalty check. And it would be nice if we could have some consistency about what was being reported on those checks. And then, you know, if they're going to wait a year to pay your royalties, then maybe they ought to have to pay you some interest by state law. And we have a bill, a draft bill written. We're working with another state on that. And we're not reinventing the wheel. You know, sometimes in all this flurry, there are people out here that think that oil and gas has just been introduced to Pennsylvania in the last couple of years, and that's simply not true. And so we're using what's happening in other states to get information so that we can start with something that's reasonable, that's already been tested other places. So that's something that we want to introduce. We were told by Tina Pickett at a meeting that Farm Bureau put together that omnibus legislation was probably going to be the way to go, meaning that it would be a comprehensive energy package that would be introduced and apparently not be able to attach other things to it and get it through. I'm getting mixed signals from industry about that. You know, there's a significant person in industry that said, I think all the legislators are tired of oil and gas stuff and all the controversy, and they didn't think anything was going to go through this year. And then I get some conflicting information, some other companies that would like to push some major things through. And the exciting thing is that industry is looking at us now. Now, we have about 300 members, but when we talk to them, we talk about the 120,000 possible royalty owners that are in Pennsylvania. Well, we don't exactly represent all of them, but we could if we could get them on board. Numbers are important. That's our membership is important from that standpoint to say who we represent. But in the last couple of weeks, I've had a call from a major Pennsylvania company that wants to talk about compulsory integration. And there's a lot of us in this organization. That's something we can talk about if you'd like to tonight. that feel that that would be a good thing for landowners to bring. It needs to be fair pooling, but it is the only thing that will bring competition back to an area like this that is heavily leased. I know a lot of you, maybe if you still have land to lease, are faced with take it or leave it offers. You either participate with the company on their terms or you're cut out of a unit. And once that lateral is deviated around your property, that's a forever proposition to be cut out. So we're looking at that, and they called us because they know that we would be an important ally. So if they can put forth a bill that we agreed was fair, we could support that, and it would help a great deal. They're a little gun shy about that. And, you know, we've continued to work on a lot of the legislative initiatives that have come forward. They're calling people within our organization, and we've been part of that conversation. I spoke in front of the Marcellus Shale Commission, how long has that been now? What, a year and a half that the governor assembled. And that was significant at that time to be asked to do that. Because the landowner, the mineral owner, let's say, has not been represented well in Pennsylvania, really. And we need to have our voice heard. So that's what we're doing. It's all grassroots level. We're not paying lobbyists. We couldn't afford to pay lobbyists. But there are times when we are aligned with industry. I'm sure you're aware of that. You know, we need them, they need us. And sometimes our interests are the same. And where they are, we will use all the resources that they will make available to us to help in the fight from the landowner's perspective. But on other things where, you know, let's say compulsory integration is one. If they want something that is not going to be fair to our position, we're going to fight that tooth and nail. But we'll use the alliances where we can to make that happen. It's all about negotiation. We work on the national level. I've been to Washington a couple times with our executive director. We're part of a DEPA is, and I can't tell you what the initials stand for, but it's an alliance of industry and the royalty owners group. And when all the parties, including NARO, agree on an issue, they go forward together and push it. Depletion allowance, how many of you know what depletion allowance is? Okay, well, if you're not familiar with it, when you get your royalty check and you file your first tax return, you're going to get to deduct off from the top, at this point, 15% of that royalty. And that deduction is under fire. Do you know what this administration calls it? And I'm a Democrat, but, you know. This administration calls it a subsidy. Oil and gas gets no subsidies. They get deductions like other business people. And our depletion allowance is one of them. The other thing that doesn't affect you directly, but we are fighting for, is deduction of the intangible drilling cost that independents are allowed to deduct. You know, this Marcellus Shale play here was found by independents. It wasn't found by the majors. Chesapeake is not a major. All these companies that were in here to begin with are not majors. And the very large companies don't even get some of these deductions, like the Shells and some of those international companies. But that intangible drilling cost deduction is just depletion. It's being able to write off your cost. And they're trying to take that away from them, and they're calling it a subsidy. And it's just an attack trying to make big oil the bad guy. And what that's going to do to mineral owners like yourself, and maybe more in other areas where they're developing more conventional plays, you know, easier to produce plays, that those small independents are not going to be able to afford to do the exploration to do that. And it's the independents that come in and find the plays for the big guys to come in and take them over. So in order for us to get our properties developed, that's important. So it's important to us to fight for that as well. And we do that in Washington. DEPA drags us along, and we seem like the small players. But what we do is help educate the congressmen and the senators about what that means to us. And that we are not big oil, and that when they take these things away, it's going to hurt us as well. There are a lot of royalty owners in the United States. In every state, there are royalty owners. You know, in New York City, there's lots of royalty owners because people have investments in oil and gas all over. So it's important to every congressman and senator, even if they're not in the oil patch, and that's what we're there to help explain. And we have made a lot of progress there. It's been us that's helped preserve that depletion allowance, but it's going to be a tough one to hold on to this year with proposed cuts. So let's see, what did I miss, Trevor, about the organization?
Good on the introductions, excellent.
Does anybody have any questions about the organization itself? It's $150 a year to join for an individual membership. That's a husband and wife. So, you know, the discounted rates for the conventions and materials is available to both. And if you have a family that has land that they operate together for $300, it can be one voting member and 3 additional, it could be a brother, sister, son, daughter, whatever. We encourage people to bring their family into this. We go to national meetings and there are people there that are trying to figure out where their minerals are that grandpa left. They've been managed by grandma and grandpa for the last 75 years, and now they've passed away and nobody understands it, knows what to do with it. Interests become fractionalized and they no longer have the same value that they did. And so we encourage people, our kids come to meetings. I know the Teals have brought their kids, your daughter's coming to the meeting, yeah. We've had several members, and we've actually at the national meeting given away 2 iPads to the members up to, I think it's 30 each year for the last 2 years. So we're encouraging that. It's tax deductible, your trips and your dues that you pay to the organization. If we lobby and use any of our money for lobbying, we have to disclose that to you. You can't deduct that portion, but at this point, we haven't done that. Some of the state chapters do. If you're a member, the glossy newsletter that's down there, you get every month from National, and help yourself to any of those that are down there. We don't want to take those home with us. And then we have one, Trevor is our editor, and he puts that out every other month, give or take. I guess it's been about 3 a year. 4. 4? Okay. It's supposed to.
We're going to start calling
Quarter. Oh, okay. Isn't that a, oh, okay, that's right, 4 a year. That's what we've been doing. We're a little informal. But we've been getting, you want to read that Pennsylvania newsletter because we've been getting praise about that all across the country. And this is from mineral owners across the country. Some people are members of every chapter. They pay the extra money to be a member. And they get our newsletter. They may not have any interest in Pennsylvania, but they're pretty impressed with our newsletter, just the same. So we try to keep people up to date on what's going on. Any questions about the organization?
Just the free legal advice alone.
Yeah. Aren't we all best friends with our attorney now? Do we have any attorneys here tonight? It's okay. We thought Jen Shoemaker would be here. What's your name?
Drew Nicholas.
Drew Nicholas. Are you from this area in here?
From Tawanda area.
Okay. Well, good. You made a trip up. You know, we spent our first 20, my husband, Cliff and I farm, have 400 acres, and we spent the first 25 years of our marriage trying to, avoid, you know, usually if you had to go to an attorney, other than making a will, it was usually something bad, you know, unless you were transferring real estate. So, you know, getting one with your attorney was a new thing. But with what I do, I have a business also on our energy consulting, and there probably isn't a day goes by I don't talk to an attorney or two. So, and I spend a lot of time trying to help royalty owners get comfortable with that. Don't just sign things without, if you don't understand what it is, you need to consult an attorney and get some good advice. Because I think we've all learned that there's an awful lot of things in this business that become permanent when you put the signature on the paper that you had no idea where it was going. A big topic at some meetings we've had has been royalty deductions. Now, from here till 9 o'clock, and it's 10 after, this is just informal. And to talk about things that might be issues to you, there might be expertise in the room that could answer questions. We always like to have an attorney in the room. And typically, even at our informal gatherings, John Shoemaker was planning on coming and didn't. Hopefully he's not at the Legion, where we were last time. But there may be somebody that has an answer to the question or knows where to get an answer. Royalty deductions have been a big topic, and I don't think we have to be shy about saying that there are certain companies out there that are taking deductions that seem unreasonable, some that are maybe interpreting leases differently than we expect that they would, and this is something that we are working on within the organization. Yes?
Something along those lines, with deductions. What's NARO, how are you interpreting the market enhancement clause? I mean, what's the kind that's a hot topic right now?
That market enhancement clause, in this area that we're in dry gas. It doesn't need to be enhanced to get it to market. And so calling transportation and dehydration and compression, etc., enhancement is not correct. Not correct interpretation of that, we believe. And so we think that that big green company that interprets it so. And Chesapeake and I think Anadarko, I don't know if Anadarko's doing that. After they talk to Chesapeake, that might possibly be it. We feel that there's no question they're not interpreting that correctly. And other companies that are in partnership with them on those JVs are interpreting it differently. That's pretty clear. So in other parts of the state, you know, if you have in dry gas, we're not separating out liquids. We're separating out water. It's that. They're not separating out propane and butane and ethane and all those things. Down the southwestern part of the state, where they have the wet gas, they do. And those things are going to need to be processed into a form that can be marketed. So you hear about the fractionation plant, I think that's what it's called, that Shell wants to put in Southwest PA. So if the company was selling those byproducts, they could sell them to that plant at a price, and that plant then takes possession and processes them. That price that they were paid is what you would get. If they could also choose to send it through the plant and remain in possession of the gas till it comes out the other side and pay the fees for processing that into another form, that's enhancement. And then you expect a higher price on the other side, and then you pay your proportionate share of those fees to go through that plant. You know, if you're a farmer, it's like drying your grain, whether you sell it dry to the mill or whether you have them do it, you pay the fees to do that. So we feel that they're not correct. On the issue of division orders, now we did, how many of you have seen some division orders you weren't sure you wanted to sign? Anybody? Some of the companies, and I'm not just going to pick on one company, Chesapeake has language in that we don't like to see. EOG actually put a clause in that said they could take deductions. They put that deduction clause that said they could take for dehydration, compression, and all that in the division order that a client of mine had signed. We did have a success. Chesapeake was one of the big ones that was holding up royalties if people refused to sign their division order. And we used our connections with our executive director in Tulsa and the connections that I had here in Pennsylvania to get to people at Chesapeake that realized that this was not right. Number one, there's probably no legal standing to withhold anybody's royalties in Pennsylvania pending a signing of a division order. But yet, here you are, maybe you've been waiting for your check for a year, maybe your check's gonna be 6 figures, maybe close to 7 figures, and they're saying, sign this division order exactly as it is or we're not going to pay your royalties. And so it's the same thing as holding a gun to that person's head to sign that. And so they sign it as it is. And our executive director was having a conversation at a national oil and gas meeting with some Chesapeake people, and it was about fairness and how they're dealing with people. And they said, Tom Price, it was with Chesapeake, said, well, give me specific examples, Jerry. And he said, well, I'll work on that. And I had just sent him an email that came from an attorney here in Pennsylvania where the person at Chesapeake had put it in the email, sign it as it is or we're not paying royalties. And Jerry chased that guy down the hall, chased Tom Price down the hall, and within minutes, I had an email, Dave Spiegelmeyer had an email, and Tom told him to fix it. Now, it took us 3 months, and the first reply after a month and a half was, I think we're going to stay with our original position, maybe dealing with it on a case-by-case basis. And I came right back to Tom and said, you know, I had somebody come to me the other day, they've been waiting 8 months for royalties. We finally got them hooked up to the right people, and now they got the division order, and we're told we need this tomorrow for you to get your check by the end of the month. And he said to me, well, that's not right. And so within a couple of weeks, I got an email back, and you can take this to the bank. Chesapeake said they will not withhold royalties based on receipt of a division order. If there's a discrepancy in your acreage, that's something else. They said that also in the email. And I've had attorneys tell me since then that those royalties have been released. So if you get a division order from Chesapeake, and they're still sending out with all the language.
Yeah.
And so if you're not a member of NARO, you don't know any better. But you can cross off. The only thing that needs to be on there is your name and your address, that's correct, and your fractional interest, and that it's correct.
You have
And your tax ID
form
number.
on your website.
We do. And even that, though, has some indemnity language in it. And the reason for that is, that's a bit of a problem, I think, for us. The reason is Texas requires a division order. So that division order was a negotiation between the National Association of Division Order Analysts and NARO and Texas to come to an agreement of something that was agreeable to everyone. So it still has more in it than we think, under Pennsylvania law, than it should have. So if you cross off everything else, I won't even use an Adobe form. I would just cross everything off for what you need and send it in. And if you're a NARO member and you still are having a problem, send me an email and I'll forward the email that I got about that. So that's something that we've done we've done it for everybody ultimately, but specifically for our NARO membership that's contacted us. So. But the royalty deductions are a huge issue. They're very substantial. We've seen up to 50% of the check in deductions. So if you think about it, if your royalty is 12.5%, if you're paying 80 cents in deductions, then does that not mean that it's over $6 that it cost them to transport $2 worth of gas? It doesn't even make sense.
And that is, if I'm understanding correctly, that even happened with people who signed with Chesapeake who had clauses that said there will be no deduction. correct?
Yeah, and that's the thing, it all goes back to your individual lease, because some people have leases that say they can take deductions. And if the lease is silent on it, it's possible the Kilmer case is established that they can still take deductions. You know, that Kilmer case really shot us in the foot. And, you know, if the oil and gas company's wrong, we need to fight them tooth and nail to get what we deserve. But I think landowners, mineral owners, need to be educated about what their odds are in a suit. You know, when that came about, I talked to a lot of people, and I didn't think it was going to be successful. And I thought that the attorneys involved in that were building expectations in people that were completely false. And making them think they could get out of a lease and then sign it. And forgive me if somebody's in here that feels that I'm talking to them, but you know, that they can get out of the lease and now get big bucks and get a better lease. I don't think that case had any merit from the beginning, and then in the end, it put clearly in writing in the case that they can take deductions, that it's priced at the wellhead, and that from the wellhead out is not considered pre-production and can be deducted. There is a state that, and I can't remember which state it is, that says that everything up to the point of sale is pre-production. I don't know, that would probably be pedaling backwards, but I think that that's absolutely correct in the case of gas. If you have oil, you know, that's where that 12.5% and you can get your share in kind came from, that if you bring oil up out of the well, you can take your 12.5%, put it in your own tank. There's 2 tanks there, one for the company and one for you. And you can take your oil and use it or sell it or whatever you want to do. Or you can pay the company to market that oil for you. But gas has got to go in a pipeline. You can't do that. So what this one state maintains is the gas doesn't have a value until it gets to the point of sale. So if the company's going to develop your gas, they got to dig the hole and do whatever they need to recover the gas, and then they need to get it through a pipeline to the point of sale. And that's where your gas should be priced. And there are companies that do that. We're with Talisman and Shell together. And at this point that we're aware of, Talisman just doesn't take deductions. And there's somebody, you always have to be careful making broad statements like that. But we're seeing, you know, as we talk, and that's a benefit here, talking to lots of people around in different situations. Some are taking deductions and some aren't. So you could have a lease with Talisman that says it allows deductions and they're not taking them. And you're getting the market price. So it goes back to your lease. If your lease allows for it, they can take it. Now, the enhancement clause says in the very beginning, they cannot take deductions for marketing, compression, dehydration, that long list. And then the last part says that you'll share the cost of enhancing the gas. And so it's just an incorrect, you know, like Statoil takes deductions. This is kind of telling. They take deductions where the lease says they can, and on the enhancement clause, they are not here in the dry gas area. So that's an indication of 2 companies interpreting it differently, one correctly and one incorrectly. Anybody have any hot topics they'd like to discuss? We have energy in depth here. Would you like to say a few words on what you're doing tonight?
Sure.